Okay, we want to start the second lecture in our first chapter, our introduction, and as stated in our course objectives or our chapter objectives here, we wanted to talk a little bit about the prudent healthy diet and for you to understand the connection of these suggestions to optimal health. The prudent healthy diet is based on the current recommendations that have come from some major health professional organizations and government health agencies. Examples of those: the American Heart Institute Association, the Department of Health and Human Services. And those are just a couple of the two that have really helped develop this diet. In the next series of slides, we want to look at the 12 recommendations, and these will be referred to once again as the prudent healthy diet. The first suggestion that these recommendations give us is that we should be balancing the food we eat with physical activity. And I think that we've pretty much spelled that out a little bit already, that the importance of physical activity is extremely important for us. It's one of those things that will reduce our risk factors as we start looking at our health. So really consume only moderate food portions and be physically active every day. Secondly, eat a nutritionally adequate diet consisting of a wide variety of nutrient-rich foods. And here we want the My Plate Food Guide to really guide your food choices. Now, the My Plate Food Guide is new in 2011, and this has replaced our Food Guide Pyramid, which was replaced by the My Pyramid. This is what's replaced that, and this is what our government is telling us that we should use in order to create good guidelines for what we should be consuming daily and with each meal. Now, in chapter 2, we're going to spend more time learning about the My Plate, and we'll do an exercise in which we'll use My Plate to evaluate our own diet. Thirdly, be concerned about how much fat is in your diet. We want a diet that's moderate in fat, but we want it to be low in the saturated fats, and saturated fats are those fats that come from animal sources. We want it to be low in trans fat, and we want it to be low in cholesterol. And once again, when we get into the chapter on lipids and fats, we'll talk more about that. We also want to choose a diet that has plenty of fruits and vegetables with whole grain products and legumes, and our legumes come from our bean family. Those are the foods that are very rich in healthy carbohydrates. When we look at our whole grain, they have a lot of phytochemicals, which are very good for us as in regard to good optimal health, and they consume fiber. And what we'll all learn, I'm sure, later on is that none of us are consuming enough fiber in our diet. We want to choose beverages and foods that help reduce or at least have a moderate level of sugar. We want to be concerned about how much salt we have in our diet. So we want to choose foods that have less salt. We want to prepare foods using less salt. How many of you out there are the type of person that grabs their plate and salts it and then tastes it? I know I am, and it's a habit that I work really hard to try to change. How many of you take the time to look at the sodium content in the foods that you consume? If you drink an alcoholic beverage, do so in moderation. And remember, pregnant women should not drink any alcohol at all. We want you to maintain your protein intake at a moderate yet adequate level. And athletes need a certain amount of protein. That's an important nutrient for us. But where are we getting our protein from? Too often we rely on our protein just from our red meat sources. The prudent healthy diet suggests to us that we should obtain much of our protein from plant sources. And then we should complement that by eating smaller amounts of fish, skinless poultry, and then go after the lean meat. And that can be a tough change for some of us, especially from this part of the country. We need to choose a diet that's adequate in calcium and iron. What we know is that in our population today, these are two of our minerals that we just don't get enough of. As a result, they have to be on the label so we can read and see what we're consuming. And if you're one of those individuals that are very susceptible to cavities, then you need to really be concerned about how much fluoride you're consuming. In fact, many communities take care of that for you. They put fluoride in the drinking water. We also have to practice food safety, which means we have to understand how to properly store our food, how to preserve our food, and how to prepare our food. We need to avoid the intake of questionable food additives and dietary supplements, and this becomes a real problem for us in athletics. We seem to think so many times in athletics that if I want to get better, I can do that by adding something to my diet. And so we do it in the form of supplements. And so many times kids are actually consuming an entire cocktail of different supplements and don't think to look at what the interactions might be of those, or even think to look at, are there problems if I have excessive amounts of those supplements? And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through every nutrient category. And finally, enjoy your food. Eat what you like, but balance it within your overall healthful diet. So enjoy your food. So before we move into this last area here of this lecture, what I'd like you to do is now think back. Once again, you had to kind of reflect back earlier in this chapter about what you did in regard to physical activity and what you did in regard to where you consumed your food. But now look at these 12 items. Are you consuming a diet that addresses these 12 issues that help us consume healthy foods? Or are you way off base? Are you one of those people that salt and then taste? Are you one of those people that I'm going to eat red meat, I'm going to eat it with every meal, and I'm going to pick the 80-20 hamburger because it tastes better. I'm going to take the ribeye steak because it tastes better. And yeah, you're right, it does taste better. Why? Because it has more fat in it, and fat gives us flavor. But then on top of that, remember, one of the assignments you're going to have is to review your family history. Do you also come from a family where your grandparents have suffered from heart attacks or strokes? Do you come from a family where perhaps your parents or your grandparents are on high cholesterol medication? Do you come from a family where you have an evidence or a predisposition for certain cancers that are related to nutrition? If you are, then you need to really take a close look at this, because we have to break that chain early on in our life. We can't wait until we're diagnosed with the disease to make a change in our life. We have to do it early. So the question then, are you eating right? Well, one of the assignments that you're going to have to do is the application exercise, and that application exercise is found on page 29 through 31 of your textbook. And at the end of that, you're going to be asked to rate your current diet. Now, you're also going to be asked in the course of this course to evaluate your physical activity. And when we do that, we're going to use the My Plate. And there's information about My Plate that will be shared in an additional lecture when we get that assignment. So are there additional health benefits when both exercise and diet habits are improved? Well, absolutely. When we take a poor diet and we take physical inactivity, the individual risk factors for a number of chronic diseases just go through the roof. And so as a result, if we take a healthy diet and we increase our physical activity, we're going to have complementary effects from that. And that's going to help us prevent several of those chronic diseases. The ones that really just magnify for us are diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. And once again, when you do this family history search as required in this chapter, some of these may come out. And then you have to think, are they related to diet? Are they related to physical inactivity? So when we talk about these risk factors, high blood pressure related to nutrition and cardiovascular exercise, that's our aerobic exercise. How about obesity as we go down the list here? Well, we can reduce that by having proper nutrition, in a low-calorie diet, and once again by cardiovascular exercise. How about our family history? Well, it's a major classification as a risk factor, and we really can't alter it. We can't modify that. We can't change our history. What we can do is look back up there and find out, well, what are some of those things that are going on in our family that we can't change? So we really want to take a really close look at the risk factors, and then we want to look at key lifestyle behavior factors that can be effective in favorably modifying our heart disease risks. So that finishes our second portion of Chapter 1, and we'll be back here very briefly to conclude Chapter 1. Once again, you might want to be looking at some of the activities that are due in this chapter and pay close attention to due dates.